Thank you. Evening.
He created worlds that redefined the meaning of cinema: the haunted silence of Alien, the neon rain of Blade Runner, the blood and dust of Gladiator. Every frame of his films looks like a painting. Every moment, a battle between man and fate. But behind those masterpieces lies a man driven by obsession, a perfectionist who built empires, on set and demanded absolute control. Born far from the glamour of Hollywood, Ridley Scott wasn't supposed to become one of the most powerful directors in film history. Yet he turned imagination into architecture, crafting worlds where beauty and brutality coexist. How did a British art student, raised in the shadows of war, transform himself into the architect of modern cinema? This is the story of Ridley Scott, the man who turned vision into legacy. Ridley Scott was born in 1937 in South Shields, England, during a time when the world itself was being torn apart by war. His father, Colonel Francis Percy Scott, served in the British Army, which meant the family was constantly moving from base to base. Stability was a luxury they could never afford. While other children played in gardens, Ridley's playground was the aftermath of World War II: bombed streets, burned walls, and the eerie silence of abandoned buildings. The imagery of destruction would later echo through his films: the cold corridors of Alien, the dystopian skyline of Blade Runner, the chaos of Black Hawk Down. His mother, Elizabeth, was the anchor of the family. Strong, pragmatic, and artistic, she nurtured Ridley's imagination and gave him his first glimpse of storytelling. At age 10, his father bought him a Rolleiflex camera. That simple gift changed everything. Ridley became obsessed with framing, light, and shadow, not realizing he was training his eye for cinema long before he held a film camera. Growing up in post-war Britain, he learned that beauty could rise from ruin, a lesson that would define his entire artistic vision. Even before Hollywood knew his name, Ridley Scott was already building worlds inside his own mind. Ridley Scott's path to filmmaking didn't begin in Hollywood. It began in classrooms filled with sketches, storyboards, and restless imagination. After studying at the Royal College of Art in London, he joined the BBC as a set designer, crafting backdrops for TV dramas. But Ridley wanted more than sets. He wanted control over every frame, every light, every movement. In 1968, he founded Ridley Scott Associates, a commercial production company that would change advertising forever. His TV ads were cinematic miniatures, full of atmosphere, tension, and visual perfection. One of his early works, a haunting commercial for Hovis bread, is still considered a British classic. The industry began calling him the director who paints with light, but commercials couldn't contain his ambition. In the mid-70s, he turned to film, determined to prove that his eye for imagery could carry a full-length story. His debut feature, The Duelists, 1977, was a period drama about honor and obsession. It won Best Debut Film at Cannes, signaling the arrival of a new visionary. Then came Alien, 1979, the moment Ridley Scott went from promising to legendary. Blending science fiction and horror with painterly precision, Alien terrified audiences and redefined what sci-fi could look like. The creature, the corridors, the silence, everything bore his signature. From that moment, Hollywood realized Ridley Scott wasn't just a director. He was a world builder. His camera didn't just tell stories. It built universes that felt alive, brutal, and beautiful. The age of Ridley Scott had begun. The 1980s and 1990s cemented Ridley Scott's name among the titans of cinema. Just 3 years after Alien, he unveiled Blade Runner, 1982, a film so visually groundbreaking that critics didn't know what to make of it. A mix of noir melancholy and futuristic decay, it flopped upon release but later became a cultural monument, inspiring generations of filmmakers, designers, and dreamers. Ridley's genius lay not only in storytelling but in world-building. His films didn't just happen. They existed. He built ancient Rome in Gladiator with the same devotion he built the streets of dystopian Los Angeles in Blade Runner. Every detail, from dust particles in the sunlight to reflections on a soldier's armor carried his obsession with realism and texture. In the 2000s, Gladiator became his defining triumph. The film resurrected the epic genre and won 5 Academy Awards, including Best Picture. Russell Crowe's line, "Are you not entertained?" echoed across the world, and so did Ridley Scott's vision, cinema as a battlefield of emotion and spectacle. Then came Black Hawk Down, raw, relentless, almost documentary in its chaos, followed by Kingdom of Heaven and The Martian, proving he could master any genre. He was called the architect of epic cinema. While others chased trends, Ridley built worlds that lasted, from spaceships to deserts, from myth to modern war. His lens turned chaos into beauty, and his perfectionism turned films into legends. By the turn of the millennium, Ridley Scott was not just making movies. He was defining how the modern world sees them. For all his brilliance, Ridley Scott's journey was far from flawless. Behind the grandeur of his films lay a man often described as unyielding, controlling, and brutally honest. His perfectionism made him a visionary, and sometimes his own worst enemy. After the success of Blade Runner and Alien, expectations became impossible to satisfy. Projects like Legend, 1985, 1492, Conquest of Paradise, 1992, and A Good Year, 2006, failed to connect with audiences or critics. Reviewers called his work beautiful but cold, claiming his obsession with visuals came at the expense of emotion. Ridley brushed off the criticism. "You don't learn anything from success," he said. "You learn from getting your ass kicked." But in 2012, his world collapsed. His younger brother, Tony Scott, also a celebrated director, took his own life. Ridley was devastated. The loss forced him to question everything: his pace, his purpose, his obsession with work. Still, he kept filming, pouring his grief into motion. The Counselor, 2013, and Exodus, Gods and Kings, 2014, faced harsh criticism, and Hollywood whispered that Ridley Scott's time was over. Then came controversy again, this time off-screen. House of Gucci, 2021, and Napoleon, 2023, drew both praise and ridicule. Critics called them overblown and historically inaccurate, while Ridley fired back with his trademark bluntness, "Get a life. It's just a movie." For some, he was a genius. For others, a tyrant. But no one could deny this truth. Ridley Scott never stopped pushing boundaries, even when the world pushed back. His career wasn't defined by perfection. It was defined by persistence. Because in Ridley's world, every failure was just another battle in his lifelong war for cinematic immortality. When most directors would have faded into nostalgia, Ridley Scott chose evolution. In his late 70s, he delivered one of the most surprising comebacks in modern cinema, The Martian, 2015. A film both humorous and human, it marked a new side of Scott. A storyteller who found warmth in isolation, optimism in survival. The movie grossed over $600 million and earned 7 Oscar nominations. A triumph not just for the film, but for a man who refused to slow down. While his peers retired, Ridley dove deeper into the future. He produced and directed Raised by Wolves, a philosophical sci-fi series exploring faith, technology, and human evolution. And then came Napoleon, a project decades in the making. A spectacle of power, love, and madness, shot with the intensity of a man still chasing perfection at 85. What sets Ridley apart isn't just longevity, it's adaptation. He embraced digital filmmaking, CGI, and even virtual production long before they became industry standards. His eye, sharpened by decades of analog craft, now commands technology like a paintbrush. Through loss, criticism, and time itself, Ridley Scott never stopped creating. Every frame he directs carries one message: that art belongs to those who refuse to stop dreaming. In a world obsessed with youth and novelty, Ridley proved that vision doesn't age. It only evolves. Over 5 decades, Ridley Scott has built more than movies. He has built worlds. From the claustrophobic horror of Alien to the mythic roar of Gladiator, His films have shaped how generations imagine the past, the future, and the struggle between them. He taught Hollywood that cinema is not just storytelling, it's architecture. Every set, every beam of light, every breath of fog is part of his blueprint. And through that architecture, Ridley Scott left behind something greater than fame: immortality through vision. You can see his influence everywhere: in advertising, in sci-fi blockbusters, in the visual grammar of modern storytelling. Few directors have bridged art and technology so seamlessly, or lasted so fiercely against time. Today, at an age when most men look back, Ridley Scott is still looking forward, designing his next battlefield, his next empire of light and shadow. His journey is proof that vision never retires. It simply finds a new horizon. CTA. If you love stories of the legends who shaped Hollywood, make sure to like, share, and subscribe, because this is only the beginning of Stars and Scandals.